Hello and welcome back to Moog's Little Figures, where a bearded idiot does unspeakable things to innocent plastic. Right, this video is going to be something slightly different. It's not actually going to be a tutorial of any real stripe. I'm just going to talk you through the processes I go through and the way I think when I'm going to paint a character miniature. From start to finish, hopefully. So we should end up with a reasonably table-ready miniature at the end of all this. Right, the character I've got to play with is this chap. He's an Eldar Farseer, and I've got him because I'm starting a new army in the new year, and this is going to be the very first character for it. So this will be coming out in the new year, I would imagine. What I've done with him, very basically, is I've gone in with a matte black primer. And then I've gone in with a very, very light grey zenithal prime, which is spraying from over the top of the miniature, so you get basic light values from where light would hit, which is really useful because it helps you see the detail and get an idea of where light and shadow should be on the miniature. And it also uncovers chudding great big seams and things that you missed on first inspection. So I've gone in there with a bit of putty and kind of cleaned it up. Hopefully we'll be able to sort that out with what comes next, because what we're going to do next is add to the light values a bit, so we get a clearer idea of where highlights and things will be going. We're not thinking about colour at this stage, although I have a vague idea in my mind because he's from a particular craft world, but I'm just trying to sketch in where the light would be and try and get a bit more texture into it, just using white and grey. So I've got a basic white colour here. That's army painted matte white, which is a really good white, and that's the ash grey, I think. So first things first, what we're going to do is we're going to go in with a bit of dry brushing. This is if you see my other one of my other videos, I mentioned about the top of my wet palette here is a bit sort of knobbly from old bits of paint, and I've just spray painted over it because it's really useful as a texture palette. So we start off with a fairly dark cat here. Perils of living and gaming with a cat. Not that I game with a cat, but you know what I mean. And you work that into the brush. So it's a slightly lighter value than what's already on the miniature. And when we're thinking about light values, we're picking a direction from where we want the light to come. I usually go from about that sort of angle. And anything I can see there on the miniature wants to be brighter than anything else. And anything I can't see from there is going to be a little bit darker. So we'll start with the helmet a bit. And just start picking out in lighter colours with the dry brush. I'm going to get a bit more paint off there. I wanted to do, this is really, really easy if you've got an airbrush, which I have, but what I wanted to do is show you how easily it can be done with a dry brush instead. So, just pick away the high areas with a high light value of paint, and that hand I want quite bright as well. And this is all very rough at this stage. With rough dry brushing, what you also get is a bit of texture in the cloth and on the armour. Now I paint in a grim dark style, so I'm after texture and contrast. So this really works for me. So get a bit on that cloak as well. Tip of that cloak. All along the edge where you can't see. You have to bear with me, I'm still getting used to working under a camera. It adds a new dimension to the hobby, I'll tell you that. Get a bit more white in there. Most of the thing out. What I got sat in the corner here is a really, really high-tech way of moistening your brush again, after you've got it dry, because although dry brushing, it's in the name that you want to kind of dry brush, you don't want it all the way dry. So that's just got a bit of sponge in it, moistened. You can buy these. I find this is much cheaper. It's just a bit of it's a bit of the foam you used to get in the old blister packs, if you remember them. And I've got it in a little metal carafe type thing here, but I've used an upturned base before. It's a lot cheaper than the products which are on sale out there, which do exactly the same sort of thing. So it's added a bit more moisture to the brush, which enables a bit more paint to come off, if you notice, which gives us a bit more texture. That's perhaps a little bit too moist, which is sometimes a good thing, but no good when you're painting. Ain't no good if you're in the jungle. Right, so we're getting there with our first pass with a dry brush. So we want a bit along the back there, because I can see the edge of his cape cloak thing, coat. Let's get some actual colour on his staff there. Spear, isn't it? Singing spear, I think they're called, these things. Bit of wraith blade on the end of a stick. Let's get some more colour value in there, light value. So the problem with looking at a lot of these YouTube tutorials, you tend to pick up an awful lot of pretentious terminology like light values and zenithal, and it's it just becomes part of the language. Basically what you're trying to do is create a pattern of light and shadow on the miniature that looks natural, that doesn't look wrong to your eyes. Your eyes are very good at noticing when things are wrong. Not when it comes to social media and information, but that's an entirely different story. So I'm going over it again, put a bit of slightly more white into that mix. Yeah. So very lightly over the top now. So we're just picking out the very, very lightest points that will be most illuminated. So the upper reaches of the folds of the cloak. That hand again, because I'm going to do something special with that. I think I might put a bit more on the witchblade as well. Singing spear. Just a bit more around the edges, just to pick out the tip of the blade, particularly. Because if you can get these values put in fairly early on, it gets set in your mind where the light and shadow is. So even if you were to go over these with normal paints, you would still have it in your eyes where the light and shadow would be naturally. So you have more of an idea when it comes to that stage in the painting what you're doing. Right, let's try and blend that in a bit more. So that's on the dark side of the miniature. So if we get more from the grey end of things, and I think we'll just stipple that on. Let's try and blend it in a bit more. think I should have given the putty a bit longer to dry, but oh well. I think we'll get away with it. What do you reckon? Not too bad, is it? Right. Blend it in a bit more. So the idea of this video is to show you all the successes and all the failures, because sometimes the failures are just as useful as the successes. So as I paint, every time I paint a miniature, I always learn something. Usually something never to try again because it doesn't work, or something that I should try again because I'm just not practiced at it yet, but I could be better at it. The trick is not to get disheartened. I mean, it's very easy to look somewhere like, I don't know, Instagram or the Warhammer Facebook groups or on Reddit and this, where people are posting absolutely pristine Games Workshop studio quality miniatures. And you think, well, I'm never going to be able to paint like that, so what's the point? Well, the point is, we do this for fun. We're not doing this for anyone else but ourselves. So long as you can produce a miniature that is better than the last one you did, or if it is not better, you learn why it's not better, then you're making progress. And the only thing that separates you and someone who paints at Golden Demon level is practice and time. Lots and lots of practice. Because what you see, all these fantastic miniatures, what you don't see is all the failures along the way. So that's what this video is about. This is going to be another one of my failures. But we're going to learn from it. Okay, I'm going to put the dry brush away for now because I think we've done about all we can. Maybe just another quick shot in with white. There we go. Just the very, very edges. Very edges. You get your fingers in there as well, because, you know, why not? Non-toxic paint. I expect some people are going to ask me why I'm not wearing gloves. Well, the reason for that is it takes me a lot less time to wash my hands than it does for a nitrile glove to biodegrade, you know? That's the way I look at it. I mean, I can, you know, let's just paint my finger, whatever, I don't care. There's no cross-contamination issue here, so it doesn't matter if my hands get mucky. I can wash them. And as I say, it doesn't take 10 years for my hands to degrade on a landfill. Of course, you can get biodegradable ones, but, you know, that's where the 10 years come in. If they aren't biodegradable, they never go away. Right, okay, so let's have a close look at him. I mean, he's getting there already. I mean, the dry brushing there has also given a bit of texture to the cloak, which is fantastic. I'm going to go in a bit with a smaller brush and pick out that even more, because the eventual plan is I'm going to hit these up with slightly thinned down contrast paints, which should tint the miniature, and all this texturing and under highlighting and stuff that I've done now will show through, and we'll have less to do when it comes to actually finishing the miniature off with highlighted colour. So let's find ourselves a reasonably small brush. I mean, if you want to look up this technique online somewhere, it's called grisaille, which is a French term. Comes from the Middle Ages, I think. Very early painters, well, they didn't have a lot of pigments to work with, so they'd work in greys and blacks and dark and whites and things like that, and then hit up over the top with as very little pigment as they could manage. And a lot of the differences in colour value would come through because of the different shading that they'd done underneath in grey. fact, this is probably where I should switch over to the wet palettes. So let's do that. Here's one I prepared earlier. Right. You go and sit over there. Right. Right, wet pallets. You probably all know about wet pallets. They just help keep things moist, which again is good in the right circumstances. But it also helps the paint last longer and helps with mixing and blending, which is what we're going to be doing now. See if we can get a bit more light on the subject. How's that? Well, that's better for me, and I'm the one painting the miniature, so if it's worse for you lot, yeah, so what? Okay. So we can peel a bit out of there, peel a bit out of there. It gives us a nice grey value to work with. And let's go hunting for detail. Right. So it's actually quite a light grey value I've got there. So again, we're looking at highlights here. So just pretty much edge highlighting now with this grey. A little bit of water there. There as well. So while you're doing this, all the time you're looking at the miniature and you're thinking, where can I add a bit of texture, where can I add a bit of light, what's going to be the brightest part of the miniature? And takes a bit of practice to get your eye in, and you know, my eye's not in there yet, but that's why I'm doing this, and this is practice. I just happen to be doing it on camera. I am not in any way a professional painter at all. Oh, my brush is dying, look at that. Guess I'll be getting a new one of them, eh? Right. Again, onto the fingers. I mean, you want to keep this paint still very quite thin, so you don't want to end up obscuring any detail unless you're actually going for texture. Which we will do in a bit, because I don't think we're finished with that cloak yet. I suppose it's more of a coat, isn't it? Robe, there we go. So what I'm doing there is I'm just creating random little spots of light. Create, because I mean, cloth isn't going to be uniform. They're woven from something, or you know, even if it's white leather, it's not going to be uniform. Which is what an awful lot what you get with miniatures is big flat areas, and they never look quite right because they don't look like they're made of anything other than plastic. Oops. Charge you up if you're filming the failures. Let's get that. Actually, that doesn't look too bad. I think we'll go with that. So we're just introducing a bit of texture and light and shadow. So yeah, on Grisaille, I'll put it in the description for the video. There are a couple of other YouTubers out there that do some very good tutorials on it. An Italian chap, Marco Frizzoni, I think his name is. He does a very good tutorial on this technique that I'm using here. In fact, I learned this technique from him. So if you're watching, Marco, thanks a lot. You have raised my painting game. And now I'm helping to raise others, hopefully. Okay. Let's get a bit going on that. Side of his helmet there. And we're going more into standard highlighting here, really. Except we're just doing it in greys and whites and off-whites. And this does take some time. Now, I'm a big fan of doing things as quickly and efficiently as possible when it comes to rank and file troops. How are we looking there? Looking okay. But characters, I think, deserve a little bit more attention. I mean, this guy's still going to be knocked out a lot quicker than a lot of these Golden Demon professional painters will knock things out. They'll spend hours and hours and hours doing this and blending and glazing and blending the glazes and glazing over the blends and all sorts of necessary stuff if you're trying to paint to that level. But seriously, if you're just trying to put something on the table that looks fairly decent, you don't need to do it, and you don't need to worry about knowing how to do it if you're never going to do it, except for, you know, sake of education. I can wet blend if I have to, if cornered with dogs set on me, but if I can avoid it and get away with using other techniques, yes, I'm eating paint, I'm one of those, then I will do so. I'm eating paint because it is non-toxic. That's not why I'm eating it, but it is non-toxic, so it's not doing me any harm. And one thing it does, apart from voiding your brush, is it brings it back to a point. Now, this brush was on its way out, and you put it in your mouth, wipe off the paint on your tongue. Tastes a bit weird, but it brings it back to a point. Oh, excuse me, not COVID. Right. And back to work after grossing it all out. So we're at almost pure white here. And this is the point where we're trying to add a bit more sort of actual texture. So, just random spots, creating that non-uniformity and texture that's going to sell as probably leather in this case, I think, although it'll be, thinking maybe white leather, although I say white leather, nothing that is white when you paint it is actually white. There's something to wrap your head around. The mid-tone you use for painting whites is usually a grey of some sort, or a very light blue, pale icy blue. And I will show you what I mean at some point, possibly not in this video. We'll see how we go. But I'm not going to show you a technique just for the sake of it, because it's not really the point of this video. It's just more sort of watching me paint. Because watching other people's techniques is sometimes very useful. Because even if they're not directly teaching you anything per se, not saying, well, this is how you do this technique, you can pick up from what they're doing and improve your own technique. Sometimes. I'd say most of you have switched off by now anyway, so. But we live in hope. We live in hope. I try to make my tutorial vids as short as possible, but with the way the YouTube algorithms and things work, they like you to have videos of over a certain length. I think it's 15 minutes, so that they can stick adverts and things in, so they get their slice of the pie. Sorry, I have to keep correcting myself here, because I'm watching the miniature and trying to paint the miniature, and then I become aware that it's not actually in frame. It's so they get their slice of the advertising pie, even if the channel itself isn't monetized, which I'm not yet. I need 1,000 subscribers, and for those 1,000 subscribers to watch my videos for 4,000 hours, which I'm sure will happen in time. We're not there yet. Today is not that day. And I don't think, I mean, even if I do get to the monetization state, I won't be trying to make a living off this, because I've seen others try to do that, and I've seen what it does to them. Some very wonderful people that do it, but others tend to go too far down that rabbit hole and end up performing on camera, and that's not for me. I'd sooner produce content that people want to watch, not singing songs for super chats. On that note, if you want to like and subscribe, seriously, please do like and subscribe. Right, let's take a bit more on that hand, because I said that I was going to do something special with that later. So I want that super highlighted. I think I might have some sort of glowing psychic energy going on there. And for that sort of thing, you want as bright a white as you possibly can as a base before you go in with the colour. And I probably will use the airbrush for a bit of for that, to get the glow right. Again, you can do it with dry brushes, but that's absolute swine when you can do it with an airbrush for minimal effort, if you happen to have an airbrush. I recommend getting an airbrush. They are not that expensive in the general scheme of things. They can be kind of noisy and take up a bit of space, but for the time and money they save you, I think they're worth it. Very highlights. So this is almost sort of spot highlights with a bright white just blended in around it. The very highest points. So if I'm going quiet, I need to concentrate. yeah, certainly getting there. When I'm doing this sort of technique, I like to end up at a point where I think, well, okay, that would look good as a grayscale graphic novel character. And I think, yeah, I think we're almost there. Just want to pick out some of the details on that, on the dangly bits. Misses. Just to give them a bit more definition, make them pop a bit. And on his wraith bone, I see a lot of people tend to paint these gold. They're not. They're there's chest pieces on the warlocks and farseers are made of wraith bone, so that's the direction I'll be going with them. Keep getting notifications on my phone. I hope they don't pop up in the video. There's no reason they should, but I'm new to this and I don't know what's going on. This is just a method of painting I use. This is not my usual method, as were, but that's something I've been wanting to try a bit more often, which is why we get what happened here today, which is the way I want it. And if you're still watching, so do you. Okay. And a bit there just to make that pop a bit. Oh, I see a pouch. I see a pouch. Let's get some very bright highlights on there, and I think I'm going to call that done ish. See, this is what I mean about rabbit holes. You keep seeing bits and you're thinking, oh, I could just add a bit more, because as the paint dries, it changes colour. So I'll have gone over these areas before. I thought that looked okay. And my phone ran out of video space. Let's try that one again. So the paint's had a chance to dry, and when it does so, it changes colour a bit. So I'm just still finishing off a little bit, and then we will call it done. And then I think I will go for a cup of tea, which isn't going to affect you in any way, shape or form, because I'm going to turn the video off and it will be like no time has passed. So I'm going to do that now.